Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 198 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on February 13th, 2024. How are all you wonderful folks doing today? Yeah, I hope you're doing well. It is Valentine's Day tomorrow when this podcast will be published. So hopefully you have gotten something for your special someone. Yeah, if not, there's still time. There is still time. So just buckle down and go to work, okay? It's not too late. I believe this podcast episode may be a little long. The majority of the talk I would like to give is slated for technical discussion, and there's a lot of technical performance factors and other factors to talk about. We're going to be speaking about the CAT SR data that was published. Two papers were published last week, so we'll dive pretty deeply into those two studies, along with more information in general about that new silencer. I think we've gotten a lot of questions, so it's pretty easy to answer that all at once here on the podcast. And so I also have a quick topic planned just for some fairly short administrative updates as well. So we'll do that if we have time after the technical talk, okay? Okay, so let's get on with the show. But first, a word about our gracious sponsors that make this podcast possible. Okay, so first of all, the podcast is proudly sponsored by Legion Athletics. And as I tell you every time, nothing you do, exercise, sports, really anything is worth doing without consistency. You have to do it all the time if you want to be good at it. And Legion Athletics can help. They can help make sure that you are continuing to perform at your highest levels, okay? They got whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, vitamins, minerals, supplements, just a lot of different stuff. They don't have everything, but they have a lot of the things that a lot of you find helpful to continue on your quest to be healthy and be active. Visit legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes. Use code word PEW Science to save 20% off your first order with them. And if you keep using that code every time you check out, you'll still get loyalty points. And when you redeem those points, you'll get a net 10% off going forward with everything you buy. And it helps the podcast. It helps you save money. And it's just a good company. I use their stuff. It's awesome. And I think you should too. Okay, get strong. It's important. The podcast is also brought to you by Top Gun Range out of Houston. They are a pretty good range in the Houston area. If you're passing through there, you should go check them out. They have a 15-lane indoor shooting range, and they have the largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas. You can rent pistols and rifles and shotguns and machine guns, and now you can even rent silencers because they are not only a sponsor of the podcast, but they are also a corporate PEW Science member. They have a lot of host weapons that match the test hosts that you see in the research pedigree at pewscience.com. They have the silencers too. And so if you're interested in seeing how those silencers perform on those weapons, you can go try them out in person there at Top Gun Range. Okay, it's going to be indoors, but it's still going to give you some good peg points for your research, and you'll have a lot of fun too. Okay, and they're good folks there. Okay, you can find those guys on Instagram at Top Gun Range. And you can go to the website, topgunrange.com, check out their inventory, and tell them Jay sent you, okay? This episode is also brought to you by High-End Armament Technologies out of Oklahoma. They're a dealer of exactly that, high-end arms and accessories, significant longevity in operating and finding really esoteric stuff. Anything from night vision, thermal optics, infrared sighting systems, machine guns, rare weapons. There's a really great place to go if you're into that sort of thing. HighEndArms.com, Instagram at HighEndArms, Facebook page, HighEndArms. Tell them Jay sent you. Robert and his crew are pretty good over there, okay? The podcast is also brought to you by Silencer Shop, the largest distributor of silencers in the world. You can use their kiosk, do your fingerprints and photos electronically. You cut down on errors. You simplify your silencer purchasing process. You get a money-back guarantee. Yeah, it's a pretty good package for most people, I think. You know, you don't pay any transfer fees. You don't. You cut down on paperwork errors. It's just you and your silencer with no drama. Okay, it's silencer ownership simplified. It's pretty good. Thank you, Silencer Shop, for supporting this effort. And Most importantly, the podcast is brought to you by the PEW Science Laboratory. Okay, that's a primary sponsor of the podcast, the primary mission fulfillment center here. Okay, I'm the technical director of the lab, and the interest of public education. The lab sponsors this podcast, runs a public research effort. We continue to push the silencer industry forward, one test at a time. We are the industry leader in this research, okay? You can visit pewscience.com for the suppression rating. We developed that for you. It is the simplest and most accurate hearing safe rating for suppressed small arms. It's based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot from before combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone, which is particularly important, and we'll get into why on today's episode, okay? PEW Science is the home of the silencer sound standard, the strict high-fidelity interpretation of the MIL standard. Okay, there's 7 sections. It's the most in-depth and accurate silencer data analysis in the world. It's all available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com, okay? And you can support this podcast. You can support our lab, PEW Science. You can support all the public testing that we do for you by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. And if you're not into monthly things, which is totally fine, there's a donate feature. You can give a one-time donation if you like. That button is on the review page, on the podcast page. Every little bit helps. And you know what? If you don't want to donate or join, that's fine, dude. Still listen to the podcast. It's completely free. Something that you could do to help us out, though, that doesn't cost you anything. You can do us a solid, spread the word about the effort, give us a good rating on Spotify or iTunes. That'll help us. Give us that little 5 stars. Like and subscribe on YouTube. You know we're on YouTube. We are. I think that'll help normalize the use of suppressed small arms. Okay. So 3 topics. Topic 1. We got Sound Signature Review 6140. That's the Combat Application Technologies CAT SRA1 on the 16-inch 22 bolt-action rifle. We'll do the technical discussion of that. Topic 2, we'll go into Sound Signature Review 6141. The next one, that's the same silencer, the CAT SR on the subcompact Beretta 21A semi-auto pistol. Again, deep dive technical discussion there. And then finally, topic 3, just some quick administrative items. I wanted to thank you for your patience during this busy time, and then also specifically thank PEW Science members for your support and your donations. It's been really helpful. The effort is continuing thanks to you. Okay. So we will move into topic 1 at a time of 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Okay, perfect. Writing that down right here. Okay, let's get into this. And I do believe this will be a long episode, but we can't finish it if we don't start it. So topic 1, Sound Signature Review 6140. The Combat Application Technologies CAT SRA1 on the 16-inch 22 CZ452 bolt-action rifle. Technical discussion. Okay, so they have the silencer right here on my desk in front of me. So we are going to go in depth into the performance discussion. And I think the way I want to structure this talk, I want to talk about the physical characteristics of the silencer to give context. We'll do that first. I think that's going to help a lot of people. Okay, so it is an interesting silencer. And immediately, one of the most interesting things about it that you notice is the weight. The test specimen we have here in inventory, the one I have in my hands right now, it weighs 2.8 ounces on our scale. That's not like cleaned. That's just with a bunch of rounds through it. When you touch the silencer, you can hear the resonance as you tap your fingers on it. The walls are that thin. This thing, it's printed out of titanium. The print is relatively high resolution. It's very interesting. If you've handled a lot of 3D printed silencers, which I have, their prints seem to be just a little different. It's interesting. So these things are just my first glance, first things I notice about the silencer. And 22 silencers are they're so small and just noticeable. They're just something you hold in your hand, and you start to notice little things about them because of just the way they are. And if you're a silencer guy, you kind of know what I mean. Like a 22 silencer is just it's almost like an artifact in a way. Just it's a handheld interesting thing that you put on a lot of different guns, so you handle it a lot, and it's utilitarian, but it's something about a 22 silencer compared with a rifle silencer that just you tend to examine it. So these are the first things I noticed about it, like the weight and the feel, and actually, prior to sitting down to record this podcast, I unscrewed it from the current host it was sitting on. That's on my desk here, the little Beretta Bobcat pistol, and we're going to talk about that in the next topic, the Beretta Bobcat. But just when I took it off of there, the balance on the pistol is pretty good. The silencer is so light, and I'm saying that to you because even with other light silencers, I don't think you understand, like a 2.8 ounce 22 silencer on the end of a small pistol, there is a difference in balance, and you feel it, and it is interesting. It's definitely interesting. And so in this topic, really what we're talking about here in the meat of the technical discussion is putting the silencer on a full-length non-NFA barrel, right? A 16-inch rifle barrel. Okay, and I tell you what, most 22 silencers are light enough such that even on that long 16-inch moment arm you have with your barrel, they're generally not too cumbersome. But it's not like it's non-zero. Okay. With this one, it's a featherweight, and I can tell you from testing it, from shooting it, from analyzing it, to feeling it, it does not impact the use of the firearm, and that's something I think is cool because it's not like you have to shorten this silencer to make it happen, right? It's one size, it's monolithic, high performance, and it's just light. And in this case, it seems to be a pretty big deal. And I want to dig a little deeper and kind of talk about how it's possible to do that. I think it's probably important to understand just with regard to this technology. So when you look at it, there's only two pieces to this. Okay? You got the core, and you have the end cap. And the end cap is aluminum. That's right. So, and aluminum is pretty light. You know that. Density's light. So the end cap, easy to make it light. Got it. Really no big deal. Aluminum end caps have been on silencers for a very long time. In fact, a lot of modern steel pistol silencers and titanium pistol silencers have aluminum end caps just because it's light and doesn't need to be super strong. Because it's at the end, and it's 22. So yeah, just something for you to understand. Now, the core of the silencer, however, is titanium. It has a higher strength than aluminum. Many of you understand that. And what does that mean? Well, that means you can make sections fairly thin, because of that. It has a higher strength. Now, a lot of you also know that titanium can get weaker at really, really high temperature. That's something that we understand inherently about the material. But titanium is not weak, and it's certainly stronger than aluminum. That's pretty well known. And this is a 22 silencer. Okay, so this is for 22. Rimfire, a 22 long rifle, the specific cartridge we're talking about in the performance here, it contains a relatively small amount of combustion energy. I say relatively to centerfire, for example. And that's one of the reasons it's so easy to make it quiet, So it's very well suited to using light materials. Rimfire silencers in general, suppressing rimfire is very well suited to the use of light materials. In fact, this is also one of the reasons why aluminum 22 silencers can be so cool. They really can. Aluminum has great thermal conductivity, and it's super light and actually pretty inexpensive. So there are actually a lot of really neat silencers made from 100% aluminum. In general, there's silencers made from 100% aluminum that are really great. And there's certainly a lot of 22 silencers made from aluminum that are really great. But it just so happens that shooting rimfire is a bit dirty, right? And so, some of that comes from the projectiles being unjacketed. They coat everything with lead vapor. And this carbon, and that lead vapor and the carbon, they condense. And what it does is it forms a film on the internals of the silencer. And that builds, and it builds, and it cakes, and it cakes. And after several hundred rounds, you get quite a bit of debris in the silencer, actually. It can be significant. And in your weapon, depending on the silencer, depending on the weapon, depending on the back pressure, which we'll talk about. You shoot 1,000 rounds of 22, which might not take you too long to do, and you better be cleaning your 22 silencer typically. Probably sooner than 1,000. It just depends, but it's usually good practice to clean it. And this isn't like centerfire. 22 silencers, you're going to have to clean them. If you're going to shoot a lot, you're really going to need to clean your 22 can. It's all about the ammo you use and the barrel length and the firing schedule. But there is a rule of thumb. You can weigh the silencer when you get it. Then you can weigh it as you shoot it. You can look in it. You can inspect it. You can keep track of what you're doing. You use your imagination, but you do need to pay attention to how many rounds you're putting through the silencer when it's a 22 can, okay? Because you will need to perform maintenance. It is inevitable if you want to maintain the silencer. So, on a lot of 22 silencers, you got to be careful, right? Because if you wait too long to clean them, you may have trouble getting them apart, right? I think we've all silencer guys have been there. I've been there. Usually, when that happens, if you're lucky, you can use some tools or dowels or something, to take them apart. You can soak the silencers, whatever. It's just something suppressed rimfire shooters have figured out over the years. These are not insurmountable problems. They're just an idiosyncrasy of some designs. It's a very well-known, well-studied, not problem, but just phenomenon, and everyone has an opinion. To the point where it's really just everyone has an opinion of what they think the best way to clean a 22 silencer is, and there's no... I'm not saying that there's no right or wrong, but there's not a best way. Because I've seen a lot, and a lot of you have too. And if anyone's telling you something is the absolute best way, just relax. Okay, now, talking about specifically, this is about the CAT SR, but I want to give you this background because you need to understand. A lot of you are really new to silencers, and a lot of you have no idea about rimfire silencers. So I'm trying to, as we test more rimfire silencers at PEW Science, and we talk about more rimfire silencers on this podcast, I want to make sure that we don't, we've been focusing a lot on rifle silencers. Rimfire silencers are special. You need to understand them as a whole, or you can have a bad time. Okay. So the CAT SR, it's a little different. It is a little different for a rimfire silencer. We need to talk about this. It's very important for you to understand this. Other than the end cap, it's a monolithic design. Okay? That is one of the reasons it's so light. Okay? I told you I was going to talk about how it was able to be so light. One of the ways they get it light is making a monolithic system. You can save a lot of weight when you don't have to worry about pieces being separate and fitting and tolerances and screwing things together and yada yada. Okay, so when I say it's monolithic, it's not just monolithic like a lot of monocore 22 silencers out there, and there are a lot of them. It is monolithic as in the outer shell, if you wanted to call it that, is monolithic with the internal baffle structure of the silencer. And yes, the silencer does have baffles in it. Okay, so that's important to understand. Now, it's a complex arrangement inside, but no, there are baffles nonetheless. Okay, so how, the $1 million question here, how do you clean it? It's a good question. And again, notice I'm getting into this first because I do think this is important to talk about. And a lot of people want to understand this, and a lot of people have asked us about it. So I'm just talking about this. I'm taking the technical discussion opportunity on the podcast in which to fully explain this to you. Now, how do you clean it? Well, it's titanium. It's not aluminum. I mean, the end cap is aluminum, but you can take the end cap off. So the thing you're cleaning is titanium, and that is very good. You're in luck because that means that the chemical resistance is a bit more robust in general. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, you can pour things inside it. You can submerge it in something, in the plastic case it comes in or whatever. Okay, you can soak it. You can soak the silencer. That's a really big deal. It really is for utility here. So what are you gonna soak it in? Pick your poison. Okay, so I mean, you have options. Like let's not like make believe you don't have options here. I mean, you can go old school silencer tradition. You can use WD-40, which may not do anything. You can use automatic transmission fluid. That was a famous suggestion of a lot of old silencer folks. Use automatic transmission fluid. You can use Croil. Pick your magic elixirs. You can use hops number 9. Solvent. You can use a whiz bang carbon killing solution from the gun store. There's 100 of those. You can mix vinegar and hydrogen peroxide, and when you do that and you soak a 22 silencer internals in that, what you actually dissolve the lead and you put it into solution. You create lead acetate, which it's super cool, but you have lead acetate precipitated, and then you got to be like super careful handling that cleaning solution, because what have you done? Well, you've created a compound that can absorb through your skin in a way that the regular vaporized lead won't. I'm not saying lead won't absorb into your skin, but the lead acetate, don't touch it with your bare hands, and so be careful if you do that. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not your doctor, I'm not your dad, but just be careful. Knowing you can use the vinegar and hydrogen peroxide solution safely. Just know what you're doing and wear your PPE, and don't drink it. Don't like slather it on your hands. Use gloves appropriately. Use it in a well ventilated area, and dispose of it how you need to dispose of it. I'm not, but just know that is an option. And vinegar and hydrogen peroxide is super cheap now. And there's all other things too. Like I said, there's like carbon stuff. Like you can find. I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but the chemists out there can certainly play with different things, and you can have fun. It can be an experiment for you, as long as you don't damage the titanium. Go nuts, right? So there's another thing I'm going to mention, and I'm going to mention this because it's extremely relevant. It's extremely topically relevant here. CAT, the Compact Application Technologies people who designs this system, they also produce a cleaning agent. Okay, and I have seen folks, man, I look and see what people say about things. Just it tickles me. It's funny. There's been some speculation about what the cleaning agent is. What I can tell you is that it's a proprietary acid. And I can also tell you that it's formulated to attack carbon. And there is a very, extremely, just very, very important instruction that you should really follow. And I really do urge you not to mess around with this if you don't heed the instructions. If you do not follow the instructions, you are going to have a bad time, and you are going to cause some expensive problems for yourself. Do not, under any circumstances, use their CAT 206 cleaner on things other than titanium or Inconel to clean your gun parts, okay? Don't do it. I know that you think you can use it on stainless steel. I know you think that. I know. Don't do it. Do not get that cleaner near your silencer mounts. Do not get it near your gun. Do not get it near your barrel. Do not get it near magazines. Do not soak anything in that cleaner except things made of Inconel alloy or a titanium alloy. If you do, you may damage something, and it's not going to be pretty, dude. And that's what they tell you in the instructions. I've seen some stuff, dude. That's the caution. Other than that, I don't know. Soak your titanium 22 silencer in this stuff, or any titanium silencer, I guess, and it will dissolve the carbon. And if there is lead intermixed with the carbon vapor deposits, it will simply not be adhered to the silencer anymore. This now all you chemistry nerds and all you silencer guys, this is much different than the DIP, the hydrogen peroxide and vinegar mixture, right? The hydrogen peroxide and acetic acid mixture. This is much different than that. That creates lead acetate. Okay, that's what the DIP does. In this case, the lead's not reacting with the acid. So what does that mean? Well, you got a different product, and it's not lead acetate. Okay, so I've seen this stuff in action. Full disclosure here, I have not used it myself yet. I do have a bottle. I just received a bottle of it. I will try it. Okay, I will try it. The first order of business for me, when I can get a chance to, I'm going to shoot a significant amount of 22 ammo through the silencer I have, like a lot. The only way to prove this to myself for the Cat SR is to fill it up with lead. Then I'm going to weigh it, and then I'm going to I'll soak it in the Cat 206 and see what happens, okay? I'm going to take the end cap off. You don't want to put aluminum in the Cat 206. That's going to be a bad time, okay? That's important. But I am interested in using it. It is definitely engineered for a specific reason. It is for what I'm telling you it's for. It's for removing carbon deposits from certain alloys. It's not CLR, if you're curious about that. It's definitely not CLR. CLR won't destroy the materials that this will. Don't use this on stainless steel. Hey, you might not want to spill it on concrete either. Okay, careful, dude. It's going to be fine in the plastic cup, though, which is a little odd. It's weird. It's actually spooky in a way. Just be careful, okay? I don't want you to get hurt. So follow the instructions. They have instructions on it. There's an MSDS. Like, just be careful. Like, I don't know what else to tell you other than be careful, okay? So I hope that answers all the we have gotten so many dang questions about this, and I hope that gives you all the technical background on the maintenance of the silencer. Go nuts. I hope it helps. It has been a while since I even looked at a monocore 22 silencer that was sealed to its outer tube. We have actually in the PEW Science database, we have internal client testing that you haven't seen. We have tested monocore 22 silencers because they're very common. But a 3D printed monolithic silencer, those used to be rare. And the funny part is it's actually becoming more and more common. So it's very topical. We talk about this. I think you're going to see things like the Cat SR be more and more common as 3D printing and additive manufacturing continue to proliferate. It is, in all likelihood, the future of very advanced high-performance silencers. Okay? And so I say that, don't sleep on that Cat 206 cleaner stuff. As you see more silencers that are monolithic, titanium and Inconel, things like that, don't sleep on the utility of this advanced organic acid, because I'm not saying you have to use that, but I'm saying that there are certainly things that work better than others. So I'm not saying buy it. Just don't sleep on it. Just be aware that it's out there. Okay. That's all. That's all I want to say about that. Now you pretty much know everything about the physical silencer, super light. You know how to clean it. It's like cool. Okay. Let's talk about the physical performance. Okay. Now, on the last episode of the podcast, the previous episode, I said something that a lot of you should know, and I think it bears repeating. I think it's important. In this day and age, making a rimfire silencer quiet on a full-length bolt-action rifle with CCI standard velocity ammunition, which happens to remain subsonic out of a 16-inch barrel. I know it's called standard velocity, but it remains subsonic. Making that quiet is relatively straightforward. This is not taking anything away from folks that have loud silencers. I'm telling you technically, in the state of practice, it's relatively straightforward to make silencers quiet on this platform. Okay. Most silencers should be quiet on the CZ452 bolt action test host with this ammo, for sure. No question. And the data so far shows that to be the case. Out of 4 configurations on the website, even the short configuration of the Oculus is relatively quiet, all things considered. Okay? I mean, and here I have something open. Let me scroll down. Yes. Still in the 80 zone. So, yes, that's quiet. Okay, perfect. We are literally in the 80 zone. Perfect. Okay. Now, just because a lot of things are quiet on this gun does not mean you can't get quieter. Oh, that's right. And in this test, I think that statement was definitely proven true in spades. Okay, so let's look at it. All right. Open up review 640, 6.140, and we'll get into it. 1 second. Okay, I have the full version up right here in front of me, the full version of the review. If you want to pull up the free version of 6.140 on PEWscience.com, that's fine. You can follow along. It's no problem. It'll work. Okay. Now, CZ452 bolt action rifle. This is threaded half 20. It's European, whatever. What does PEW Science do with it? Well, we use an adapter to convert it to half 28 in all the tests. Something we do, something we've done since the inception, something we're going to continue to do. On this rifle with CCI standard velocity 40 grain ammunition, the Cat SR achieved a muzzle suppression rating of 95.5. Okay, the shooter's ear suppression rating was 89.3. Okay, that results in a composite suppression rating of 96.8. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, there it is. That when you look at this objectively, it's quite ridiculous. To put things in perspective, when you dry fire a CZ452 bolt action near your face, the hammer drop is not silent. This ear signature is extremely quiet, and it got that way due to the muzzle signature being 95.5. That is actually pretty nuts. We're going to compare it to some other stuff later, but I want to explore this a little bit, and I want to start to talk about how the Cat SR achieves this performance. Okay, so you can check it out in the review. Scroll down. Okay. Scroll down past the table until you get into the waveforms, okay? And what we'll do, just like we do every time, is we'll start with a fingerprint in figure 1. Okay, that's right. The pressure in the free field. Just because this is a 22 test doesn't mean it's any different. Okay? Silencer, sound, standard. Doesn't matter. We're examining it the same way as we do everything. Okay? Everything. Level playing field. So let's play. You're going to have to really look at this because there just isn't a lot of pressure. Okay, this is a quiet signature, guys. You are less, you're less than 20 pascals of pressure amplitude anywhere here in the signature. Look at this. You're below 120 dB on these peaks. And when you look at the maxima and the waveforms, when you look at the maximum amplitude, of those peaks, how is it presenting? Let's look at this. When you look at the figure, and you can go to figure 1B instead of 1A if you really want to look at it. I did that on purpose to zoom in on the time scale. All you're seeing, it's just the primary pressure wave, and that's it. You are looking at a textbook pressure wave. Positive phase, ramped rise time, immediate rarefaction, repeated lower amplitude, and decay. In blast effects engineering, we do actually call this a pressure wave instead of a shock wave to delineate the two, or delineate the many types of waves, but for your vernacular, we will delineate the two. I know that sometimes it sounds like I'm saying random words to you. I've got that comment before, but the words I'm choosing to use to describe what you see are actually the correct and proper vocabulary for what you're seeing in the data. This is my field of research. This is what I do. I want to tell you the words so you can know them as well. That way you can use them to describe stuff later when you need to. Okay, I'm not. It was Isaac at T-Rex Arms when I was speaking with him. He told me he noticed when I do the podcast, I don't dumb it down. And the articles, I don't dumb it down. And that's correct. I'm not dumbing it down. I'm literally teaching you the words so you can use them too. And I'm telling you what they mean. So it's cool. So that's a pressure wave. That's actually what it's called. I know that's all sound pressure, but that specific shape and characteristics of that part of the waveform that I'm talking about at 30 milliseconds is a pressure wave. Okay. Right before 30 milliseconds in figure 1B, that primary pulse, that pressure wave, which is not a shock wave, it has some specific features about it, and I want to talk to you about this. It's important. The rise time of the wave is not instantaneous. Okay? We do explain this in the Silencer Sound Standard, but another way to think about it is the pressure and the density of the fluid medium, which is the air in this case, oscillates back and forth along a line of constant entropy. Okay? And that is reversible. Now, if a shock front were to form and pass through that same medium, the pressure and the density, they jump to a completely different state with much higher pressure, much higher density, and you guessed it, higher entropy. That's right. If you ever want to go from that lower pressure and density state to the higher state, and you want a direct path, there's a special path to go. There's a special path through the woods to get there. Okay? But to finally relax, like after a shock happens, you have to relax upon a different path than you were originally on. Okay? And at which point you are going to go back to your original pressure after that shock, but at that original pressure, when you relax after that, if it was a shock, it's gonna be hotter and it's gonna be lower density. You are never ever gonna get that gas back to where it was in the same place after that shock, because that shock, that discontinuity, caused an irreversible change. That is the definition of a shock wave, and that's the difference between when you see a shock wave and what you see in the pressure wave in figure 1B, okay? Because that's what shocks do. Shocks are discontinuity in the medium resulting in an irreversible change of state to the medium, a change in entropy that can't be recovered. That's what a shock wave is. So, the easiest way to think about this is that the molecules pile up in front of a disturbance when you're below sonic velocity in the medium. We've talked about this again and again. When the molecules pile up, you get a pressure wave. That's what you see in figure 1B. The molecules can only communicate as fast as the sound speed in the medium, remember? You tap them on the shoulder, and they move. If you go so fast that you can't talk to them before you bump into them and warn them, you surprise them. That is called a shock. And you can see that easily because you go from 0 to 100 real quick, as the kids say. When you see a shock wave, that's the discontinuity, the breakdown in communication, the irreversible change of entropy that can't be recovered. I wanted to go over that. I want to speak to you like that, in that way, because we haven't talked about pressure waves versus shock waves in a while. And since the Silencer Sound Standard actually opens with that material, I thought it was important to revisit it because we're talking about 22 again. And when you notice that the Cat SR doesn't let the supersonic gases out in that way, you see a pressure pulse from the bullet and the gas disturbance, but you don't see a shock pulse, do you? You don't see a shock pulse. Why? Because the silencer's doing a dang good job. That's why. And it's a consistent job. Okay? The silencer is doing a consistent job. A consistent job. Remember, just because the ammunition is subsonic doesn't mean the gases are. That's right. Okay. Remember that. Remember that is important. That's one thing that we immediately notice the silencer does. It behaves incredibly consistently from shot to shot. Consistently from shot to shot. Another really consistent silencer, something we've noticed, I noticed this as I was founding PEW Science, as I was building PewSoft and testing silencers. One thing I immediately noticed, one silencer I immediately noticed that was consistent was the rugged Oculus in its long configuration on this host weapon. I'm giving caveats because they're needed. On the CZ452 bolt action with CCI standard velocity, the rugged Oculus is one of the most consistent silencers I've ever tested. But the Cat SR has its number. It doesn't matter what competition you're in. It could be silencer, it could be fighting, it could be baseball, it could be backgammon, it could be chess. Sometimes someone just has your number, dude, and you're never going to beat them. And that's the nature of competition in the world. The Cat SR is out Oculusing the Oculus by a significant amount in every possible performance metric. So you look at it just is, and that's just take it from someone who's tested the Oculus and the Cat SR more than anyone on the planet. Trust. I put money on that one. So you look at these beautiful, frankly beautiful pressure pulses in Figure 1, and you think to yourself, how are you doing in wave momentum territory here? How are you doing with wave momentum? What is the net result of momentum transfer potential of these consistent pressure waves on objects in the flow field? Okay, that's a complicated way to ask the question. Let me ask it a different way. In other words, in the time domain, during the time regime of the gunshot event, during when things are happening, during the time you are witnessing of reality, when you shoot the gun, how is the momentum collecting and interfacing with objects during primary combustion? It's like, I'm trying not to be complicated, but is it a complicated question? It can be a complicated question. Is there a simple answer? Yes. You were in luck. It's Figure 2. Figure 2 is the entire answer to what I just asked. In Figure 2, what do? Well, you have one of the most consistent momentum transfer histories ever displayed at this amplitude, frankly. It doesn't get a lot cleaner than that, just in practicality. Look at the vertical axis, dude. Look at it. We're dealing in a momentum regime. We're dealing in a regime of impulse that is extremely low amplitude. And one of the coolest things we see when we examine these waveforms and the gas propagation, the resulting wave momentum, is not only the unbelievable consistency of the silencer, but the sheer lack of FRP combustion divergence. Okay, you simply don't see FRP in the waveforms when you look at them. And yeah, you see the minutely higher pressure peak in Figure 1B. let's see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when you look at the pressure wave we were talking about previously in Figure 1B, you see that, but is it really that big when you look at the momentum in impulse space? I mean, try to convince yourself that it matters. Guys, spoiler alert, at the muzzle, it almost doesn't even matter. I mean, the first round gets like 119.9 dB positive phase. Shot 2 was 119.7. Okay, 0.2 decibels at around a pressure regime of between 19 to 20 pascals. And is that FRP? It's like that meme with the guy with the butterfly. Is this FRP? No, it's not. There is no FRP. Spoiler alert, there is no FRP here, dude. There is no FRP here. Yes, PewSoft can detect something, but it is the phenomenon that presents as FRP a colloquialism you have developed or been familiar with through science or vernacular in the past 30 years. Is there first round pop from the CAT SR? No. Not in the practical sense of what you would consider there to be. So, I know. It's crazy, I know. But it's 16-inch barrel, so don't get too excited. Okay, so, I mean, just in general, you shouldn't have first round pop in it, but, you know, so a lot of silencers do. This one doesn't. So now you see what happens in the free field. And so you ask yourself, well, how is the silencer doing it inside? How is the silencer accomplishing this performance? What are the internal gas dynamics responsible for the performance? And sometimes I like when you have the marketing terms because you can rely on them for a concise explanation. And frankly, it's the surge bypass variant. Sometimes you let pressure do things quickly, and then as the pressure changes, you give it the right place to go. And that is really the most vague and simple explanation of how that technology works. I'm not going to draw it for you, so you're going to have to shoot it. Every single surge bypass type silencer we've tested has a high early time flow rate with late time gas momentum throttling. And I think I've said this like 10 times, but this is basically the answer to flow through and forward flux if you want the whole sound field to be quieter. Right? That's their spin on it. That's the answer they gave to that, to be competitive with that technology, to solve the problem that those technologies have, which is like, you know, the louder total sound field. So it's a hybrid design, and that's how it's working, and that's what it's doing, and that's what we see in the data. On a bolt-action rifle, the high early time flow rate really is not going to be as apparent to you because there's no breach pressure pulse, so there's no ejection port, so that's understandable. So what you are seeing here, it is simply incredible efficiency, but you need to realize one of the reasons pure suppression on a bolt gun like this is possible is because of the cooling of the gases brought about by gas expansion. Of course, this is Silencer 101, but if you don't start that early in a way that is controlled, you're going to have a bad time if your mission is super happy Ninja Quiet Time USA. And that's one of the reasons, even though making a quiet 22 silencer on a bolt gun is easy, you oftentimes have silencers with bad FRP. It's because they let the gas expand super quickly, but they don't know what to do with it after that happens. You need the whole picture, or you're going to have a bad time. I say this over and over again. You need the whole time regime. If you don't want to think about time and you want to think this is like not a dynamic event, well, you're wrong. Okay, so all right. Okay, let's see. We've only gotten to figure 2, so that's a problem. Let's see what else is in the article. Oh, right, the resonance thing. Yeah. Tell you what. We'll talk about that in the next topic. So hold the thought about resonance until the next topic. Okay, just as a foreshadowing, we are getting so quiet that certain things matter, and you aren't used to thinking about those things. We will talk about it next. Hold that thought till the next topic, but let's just keep going. Now, let's see. Scroll down here. I talk about things like weight and comparison, performance. Now, member section. Yes. In the member review, for those of you who have access to the member review, first of all, thank you for support. You make this happen. You guys do need to check out that section. If you're a member, remember here you are literally seeing the variation of combustion phenomenon from the rimfire case and primer compound. That ignition propagating out at the sound speed through the steel into atmosphere. You are literally seeing inconsistencies in the way priming compound initiates and then starts powder ignition. That's how quiet that is. That's how nuts this is, because the muzzle blast is barely mattering to you due to the dang low amplitude of the Cat SR performance, how long the barrel is, how far it is away from your face. That's how ridiculous this is. Check it out if you're a member. Again, thank you for your support. You're the reason PEW Science exists. This is all for you at the end of the day. Just please, if you're a member, just look at the amplitudes. It's dumb. It's dumb low, dude. You're like, when you have things happen around 10 pascals, it's like, what is life? Oh, and that's like, I don't know, that's around like 115, 116 something dB. It's like, what does that even mean? So yeah. So what we'll do, I'll tell you what we'll do here, in this, just to close out this topic and make this really like give you some context as we move into the next discussion here. Let's look at some comparisons. And I know we only have a few, but this is actually pretty valuable for what it is. Okay, it's pretty valuable for what it is. The short and the long Oculus and the Jesse's Girl and the Cat SR, they're all in figure 5. Okay, so scroll all the way down to figure 5. It's the bar chart. Okay, it's the color red and blue bar chart. For those of you who are colorblind, it's the crosshatch and the diagonal hatch bar chart. When you look at figure 5, immediately your first thought is probably, okay, everything looks quiet, Jay. And yes, correct. And if that's all you care about, you're done reading, dude. And yes, a 22 bolt gun is quiet with a lot of things. Congratulations, you know that. The end. Glad this helped. Go shoot and have fun. Awesome, you're done. Stop listening. You're done. Okay, stop reading. You're done. You don't care. Because yes, on figure or in figure 5 in this article, everything's quiet. There's nothing below an 83 on the chart, muzzle and ear, no matter what configuration. Over 80, that's crazy quiet. Done. If you're just looking for a silencer and you don't care how loud it is, just know that pick any one of them and they're going to be, you put them on a 16-inch bolt gun with CCI standard velocity and you're quiet. Awesome. Done. Okay. Sound good? Okay. However, like at any high performance activity, there are levels to this. Okay. Well, you want to be good or you want to be great? Okay. When you look closer at the chart, you do notice something, or at least we do. The long Oculus and the Jesse's Girl, they're pretty neck and neck. I would call that neck and neck. So there's something that happens with the SR that's non-trivial here. The muzzle suppression rating is actually half a category higher than both of those other silencers. It is. So when you look at the shooter's ear rating, you can see, when you're looking at the shooter's ear rating, you can see that, oh, there was actually some muzzle blast contribution to that, wasn't there? Well, there would have to be. It's a bolt gun, right? Okay. So now you see what we're really dealing with here. If you thought a full-sized rugged Oculus was quiet on a 22 bolt action before, which you should still think because it is very quiet, imagine what it sounds like to shoot the SR on the same gun. It is quieter. And how much quieter is it? Well, the delta in the chart, that's how much. What does it mean? Well, it means we're moving closer toward the top of the chart. At this level of suppression, you're fighting air disturbance from the bullet. You're fighting priming compound in the rimfire case. You're approaching thresholds. You're approaching ridiculous levels. Okay, and you all wanted to know what that sounds like. You want to know what things sound like when they get toward the top of the suppression rating chart. Now you're gonna know. It sounds like this. Go shoot this on a bolt gun. Have a buddy stand around and be like, just laugh at you. Laugh as you hear the bullet moving through the air. It's subsonic. So, laugh as you literally have the pressure wave impact your ear and create impulse momentum transfer. That's what the charts show. If you're standing a meter left, that's what you're going to hear. Okay, so just like last episode where we did the introduction, I want to talk about something that is, to me, just as impressive with regard to performance about the SR. And that, my friends, is what happens when the early time flow rate and the high pressure behavior really start to matter. When you change the combustion propagation regime completely and you move to a small semi-auto pistol, things change. That's right. Let's look at the same silencer's technical performance on the Beretta 21A in topic 2. Okay, we'll move into topic 2 at a time of 56 minutes and 18 seconds. Oh man, you know what? We're actually making pretty good time. I am really happy with that. Maybe because I've stayed on topic. We'll see how that'll hold true. Topic 2, Sound Signature Review 6141, Combat Application Technologies. Again, the CAT SR on the subcompact Beretta 21A semi-auto 22 long rifle pistol technical discussion. Okay, so this is the article 6141, the pistol test of the silencer. If you're just tuning in and you just jump directly to this topic, you didn't listen to the first topic with the rifle test, you should also listen to that. It's important for you to understand the full technical performance regime of the silencer. Okay, but we're gonna focus on, for all of you who have already listened to that. Now we're gonna focus on a completely different combustion regime and talk about how the performance changes or doesn't change depending on the design. Okay. So for me, and probably for a lot of you, these semi-auto pistol tests are going to be pretty interesting. The barrel of the Beretta Bobcat is only 2.4 inches long. So the muzzle pressure is definitely a good test for a 22 silencer. And because it's a semi-auto, ejection port blast is real and definitely something designers will have to consider. So this is where a high flow rate silencer can pay dividends. But what have we learned about flow rate and high flow silencers versus hybrid designs? If you want to maintain overall sound field suppression while still minimizing ejection port hazard on a semi-auto weapon, you probably have to go with a hybrid design, or at least some type of design that maximizes early time flow rate without being a flow-through can directly. That's the name of the game. And that's basically what we're seeing in the research right now with all of our testing and all the different combustion regimes with all the different silencers, both internal PEW Science testing that you don't see and the publicly presented data. That's what we're seeing, okay? So what are we seeing in the CAT SR data in this study that's giving us a warm fuzzy about that conclusion and this performance? Let's talk about it, okay? We're going to start at the top. Bottom line up front, 86.3 suppression rating at the muzzle on the 2.4-inch barrel pistol, 80.3 at the ear. Okay, that gives us an overall composite suppression rating of 87.6 on the Beretta Bobcat with CCI standard velocity ammunition. Is that a drop-off in suppression rating from the bolt gun tests? Absolutely. Is that expected? Absolutely. You went from a 16-inch barrel to a 2.4-inch barrel. That's a pretty big change. But is the suppression performance that different? I mean, yeah, you're dropping a category, but you got a way shorter barrel and you have ejection port blast. So for context, we'll talk about how that compares to some other sensors on the same gun. And first, let's look at the CAT SR performance specifically on this host. So scroll down past the scary table. I know a lot of people get very upset about that table. And let's look at the fingerprint. Okay, it's very important. Just like we did in the bolt gun test, we'll do that with the semi-auto pistol test right now. Figure 1. Now, Figure 1 is pretty wild, and it's where you really need to take a closer look here. I know. You see the primary combustion. You see the slide slamming open. You see the slide slamming closed. When you look at the gross amplitude of these events over the entire time regime of the gunshot, you're really getting a feel for the gravity of this. Remember, and I've said this before, those of you new to the podcast and new to PEW Science, you need to understand this. PEW Science records the entire time regime. We are showing you the entire event, including the mechanical operation. It's very important. The suppression rating is considering the entire time regime. Excuse me. Okay? So we're testing in the free field per the MIL standard for that reason. The Sensor Sound Standard is the strict high-fidelity adherence to the MIL standard in the most transparent way possible. We show the entire time regime with raw data. It's just, that's what we've done from the very beginning. Because we're showing that, we can tell you with the utmost confidence that all of these events matter. And again, they're all captured in the suppression rating. So, look at this discretely. Let us look at each discrete event. Look at the slide closing. You can see that. You can see the slide return to battery. It's actually pretty loud. When you consider how loud the primary suppressed muzzle blast was from the 2.4-inch barrel that you see around, 31 milliseconds or so, you're seeing the primary suppressed muzzle blast. Okay, the primary waves from the 2.4-inch barrel. You see how loud the slide closing later in time is comparatively? And we're going to talk about why in a second, but we'll go in order. With a complex signature like this, and it is complex. When you look at Figure 1A, it looks way more complex than the signature in Figure 1A in the previous article the bolt gun did, doesn't it? Doesn't it look way more complex? It's because it is. There's way more going on. The entire signature is very complex. This is why we use the suppression rating. You can't just look at one peak dB. Look how many events are happening. Could you imagine having a single fleeting microsecond in time and then judging the entire waveform just from that, when clearly you can't compare just the peak of this waveform to the peak of the rifle waveform and have any semblance of difference when it's a completely different everything? That's why we look at the entire thing. Okay? With a complex signature like this in pressure space, it is of the utmost importance to examine the momentum accumulation to understand the consistency. And you can do that exactly in Figure 2. Scroll down more. Figure 2, that's right. Check it out. Look at the impulse waveforms. They're right there. The impulse accumulation in this test is exceedingly low, and it's consistent. And all things considered, when you look at how this test host produces its signature, it's quite phenomenal for this test host. The CAT SR performance on this test host is, I would use the word phenomenal. There is no comparison between the CAT SR and the other silencers we've shown so far on the pistol. You can't even, it's different. It's different. With this gun, there's no comparison. That it is, and there's a big reason for that. And the data shows it, dude. Just look at the signatures. You've been listening to this for 4 years. Just look at it. Just look at the data. You don't even, just trust. Look at the measured information from the test. We've shown you the momentum. You see, you're barely accumulating anything more than primary suppressed muzzle blast at a minute amplitude. You understand that. Like, look at the time regime. You can step through it, dude. Step through the time regime. Look at the pressure graph first, Figure 1B. Go to Figure 1B. Look at the primary pressure amplitude around, 31.2, 31.4 milliseconds, whatever. Okay, cool. Go to Figure 2. look at that time. It's the same time scale. It's the same test. The time's kept constant. Look at the time scale in figure 2. Look how much impulses was accumulated by that time. Okay? And then continue to look at the propagate. Continue to look at the impulse, the momentum transfer potential accumulation through the time regime, which is defined as impulse in figure 2a. Continue to look at that as you march through time during primary combustion, which is, between 30 and 35 milliseconds. Look during primary combustion. Note that you're barely accumulating anything more than primary suppressed muscle blast at that minute amplitude. Okay, so now are you satisfied? Cool. Now let's go back and talk about that slide closing. Because this is, guys, there's not a lot else to look at. Okay, now in this article, we put research note 1 in the article. I wrote that specifically because it's very important to understand. The CAT SR, and if you didn't listen to last podcast, you'll hear this now. The CAT SR will have a louder action noise on the Beretta 21A than, say, a Rugged Oculus or a Jesse's Girl, or I don't know, like an old SWR Spectre, or like a Dead Air Mask, or any other sensor that's a lot heavier. It's gonna, this one, the slide closing is gonna be louder, and the reason is that the slide impact noise is going to cause resonance through the sensor body at the sound speed in the material, and you're going to hear this resonance audibly during the firing of the gun. When you have a very quiet system, the action noise resonance is audible during the shot. And again, I said this before, discretely, you can see the waveform produced by the resonance. It's a discrete transient. That means something that's not happening in the steady state, but all of these are transients because these are fleeting in time. That's why we talk about sound signatures. We're not talking about your normal rules for decibels like you talked about for years, because we're talking about transients. We're not talking about steady state. When you look at the transient that matters here, it's a transient of resonance at approximately 50 to 55 milliseconds. Okay? That's the slide closing transient. In other words, the slide closing signature, the noise you hear quickly from the slam shut of the steel slide on the Beretta. Okay? There's like 6 different ways to say the same thing. Cool. You see that? Got it. Now, that's louder with the CAT SR than it is those other sensors. So we included the research note 1 in the article to explain it technically, because if people are really scrutinizing our work and really peer reviewing it, if they're peers, which to peer review something, you have to be a peer, you got to look at that, right? You got to be looking at that. The raw data is right there. So being able to explain this is very important. If I didn't explain this to you, you might wonder. You say, hey, why is part of that waveform like higher amplitude than typical? Oh, that's weird. Did you alter the waveforms? Are you doctoring the data? Of course not. That's a ludicrous activity. It would do us no good. It would be insane. If we did that and you would just shoot the silencer and get a different result, or people would test it themselves, they'll get something different, and that would be so easy to disprove. That would be like, that's like if you published data that was like this, raw data in the entire time regime, and you faked it, it would be easy to prove it wrong. You know the stuff that's hard to prove wrong? It's when someone posts a peak dB, and then you're like, well, I guess they could be right because they wouldn't know what the peak is. Well, you're right. It's hard to prove that wrong. It's really easy to prove wrong? This. Funny how like no one's proven it wrong. Oh, weird. I know, because it's right. Duh. Okay, so that's why we did it. We need to explain what's going on. Okay, it does nobody any good to lie. People have lied throughout the silencer industry all the time. That's a fool's errand. You're gonna be found out, dude. Don't lie. Don't lie. It's bad. You will get caught. You will always get caught, no matter what. Never lie. Lying's bad. Okay, cool. So instead of lying, we explain things like this so everyone can learn. We're going to keep doing it as long as we keep performing this work. Okay, so that's like one of the major reasons we showed this. We want you to understand what you're hearing that it is apparent in the test, that it is a part of everything, is the holistic signature. It's important. Now, you guys know why the added mass does this, right? You know why it does this. Why would added mass quiet it down? Why? Well, I talk about technically in the paper here. The frequency of vibration, as you understand, it's related to the natural frequency of the system at each different vibrational mode, right? When something vibrates quickly, whether it's like a guitar string or, I don't know, your gun, the silencer on the gun, you can't see it, but there's multiple vibrational modes that are occurring, and different modes of vibration get excited from different input to the system, to different energy input. Okay, that's like the nature of material and mechanical vibration on the scale that a gun exists on. We're not talking about like subatomic level. We're talking about like Newtonian mechanics. Okay, just to be clear with you in a simple way right now in this talk. So this is actually one of my primary research areas and practice areas for the past 20 years. It's what I do, and it's one of them. It's one of my research areas. If you ever have any questions about this, by the way, just please let me know. This is all textbook. This is just like established stuff that we just know. So if you have a question about it, just let me know. A really simplified equation that you can look at. You can take the square root of the quantity you calculate from dividing the stiffness term by in the vibrating mode, which is very important. You divide that stiffness term by the mass, and the mass you're concerned with is actually the mass moving through the primary frame of reference in this case. And this is just approximate. If you do that, if you divide those terms and you take the square root, you will see that as you increase the mass term, okay, you're going to drop the frequency, right? And you get less audible resonance. Okay, cool. I think you will see, you will see that if you perform this test yourself at home, you will hear the difference. I guarantee it. And I wrote this in the research article, in the research note. Take a really light silencer, like a Cat SR, like a Q Erector or whatever. Put it on a pistol. Let the slide go. And note the sound. Just like try to remember it, or like record it, whatever you want to do. Then do it with like a heavy silencer. The heavier silencer is going to sound more like a thud, and the lighter silencer is going to sound like a clack. The frequency changes from the dynamics of the system. Inherently, it's something. There's actually also so the frequency is changing. There is also something that's changing. There's an inherent damping term that's going to change. Okay. So that's just something for you to know. Again, I warned you, this is a technical discussion. We're talking technical here. That's what PEW Science does. So after this technical physics talk, we got through this. You read it. You understand it. Everyone understands it. It's all there. It's all explainable, measurable, audible. People all over the world can verify it themselves with no ammo, just with the silencer and the gun. You don't need a degree in engineering. You don't need a degree in physics. You don't even need ammunition. Just clack, clack, clack yourself, and you can hear it. Now, after all that, there is a conclusion that is important for you to understand, even if you don't care about the specific system dynamics. The conclusion here that is important regarding the Cat SR specifically is that it is so quiet that even the louder action noise from its resonance doesn't matter for the whole signature. Oh, yeah. That's actually a really big deal. That's a big conclusion. Because you would think, oh, Cat SR makes the action noise louder. Yeah, but the whole thing's quieter in general, so that's how quiet we're getting, where everything matters. So it's like, oh my God. That's how quiet the silencer is on this gun. The action noise may be louder, but the suppression rating at the muzzle is half a category quieter than the nearest competitor. And that's nuts, dude. And that's not even talking about the shooter's ear suppression rating, which we should talk about next. Okay, and that brings me to, I'll scroll down. There's a lot in there. I implore you, read the article. It's just, this is all in there. Now, members, in this member section, you do need to look at the member version of the review to really understand this and see the gravity. But the shooter is simply not being subjected to hazards like the other silencers. It's not close, guys. I know, like, some folks are like, well, they all sound the same. It's like, okay, you can say that all you want, dude, but that's not what the data shows. The data shows it's not close. And the difference is so stark here because of the way that the SR handles flow in early time and continues to throttle momentum out of the muzzle. It is just doing work, and it's doing it in a huge way. Remember, guys, just do not forget this. It is quieter at the muzzle, but when you zap the ejection port blast and you don't let that run away, you're doing double the work, and it's a big deal. Remember, this is a semi-auto host and a barrel short. You got a lot of things going on. You got a lot of things working against you. So to tackle those things simultaneously is very important technically. So again, members, take a look. Big takeaway for everybody here too. All members of the public, everyone listening, you need to know that the first round pop is not a consideration. FRP is not a consideration with the silencer. We talked about that with the bolt gun test. This silencer is not generating FRP in the sense that it's a practical concern, even on the Beretta 21A. Okay, PewSoft can pick up the FRP physics slightly. It can pick it up, dude, just because the nature of combustion. But your ear is not going to be subjected to adverse risk during FRP event. For this and for a 22 silencer, guys, I'm trying to put this in perspective. I know the data set's not huge yet, but I'm trying to put this in perspective for you. For a 22 silencer on both of these hosts that we tested, for FRP not to be something to worry about, it's huge news for all of you long-time silencer enthusiasts. It's huge news. Okay, so I mean, that might be some of the biggest news here, because chasing that low or non-existent FRP 22 can on both pistol and rifle, it's a grail that some folks search for a long time. It just is. I mean, for many of you, it's a very big deal. I know that. I'm one of you. I know this is a big deal. Okay, so I am happy to report we're able to give you that information from this test. I mean, if we didn't have the PEW Science testing, we wouldn't be able to tell you about it. Objectively, and we can, and that's awesome. That's a lot of value. That's a lot of value added to be able to tell you that. I'm tuning my own horn. I'm tuning PEW Science's horn because it's important, and we're really good at it. We're the leaders, and we're able to give you this information, and I'm proud that we're able to give you that information because it's useful, actionable information. Testing is no good without analysis. In fact, it's less than good. It's actually bad without analysis, because if you can't explain your results, you can mislead people, and that's damaging and dangerous. Okay, I'll die on that hill. So, one second. I will die on that hill, though. Testing without proper engineering analysis is poor. It's poor practice. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at the summary here of the performance comparisons on this tiny pistol. By scrolling further down in the article. Yeah, you can scroll down past the member stuff. You members can read that on your own time. I encourage you to do so. If you want to scroll down to figure 6, the bar chart, that's the 4 different configurations. Okay, we got 4 configurations, just like we did with the bolt gun test. Now we're looking at it on the Beretta 21A, which is a little tiny pocket pistol, as they say. Okay, cool. What do you got? You got the rugged Oculus. Fantastic 22 silencer on both the long configuration and the short configuration. You got the Resilient Suppressors Jesse's Girl, a new silencer from an up-and-comer, doing pretty dang well on this host there. And then all things considered, sure. And then, okay, I say the Resilient Suppressors Jesse's Girl is doing great on this host, all things considered, for the technology in that silencer. I think we'd all agree, for the technology in the silencer was conventional baffles. And then you have the Cat SR, which is the subject test specimen in the study, of course, that we've been speaking about. So those are the 4 data groups you see there in figure 6, the bar chart. When you look at the suppression rating comparisons here, it's actually not close. You remember the rifle comparison, sure, and you saw the SR pulled away there. We talked about why, we talked about how. Here, on the short barrel semi-auto pistol, it's pulling away, but in some respects, it's pulling away to a degree that should actually cause concern for some people. I do mean that sincerely. If I was making silencers right now, I would be paying attention, because I think most of you, like if you're a hardcore silencer user, or like you're a silencer enthusiast, you've shot a lot of stuff, like a lot of you know how a rugged Oculus sounds on a pistol, right? Like you put a rugged Oculus on like a Ruger Mark IV, like a Beretta 21A, like rugged Oculus sounds pretty good. Like a full length, a rugged Oculus in the long configuration, like one of the most prolific 22 silencers in modern times, like made well, sounds good, very consistent. We talked about it. You know how that sounds, and you have the numbers for it on PEW Science. So pewscience.com. So you know that. That's great context. That's great. Okay, so now look at what the SR is doing. Look at the chart. The Oculus is a low pressure optimized system. People know that. Silencer people know that, or you should know that. Silencer designers in 2024 need to understand that the Oculus is optimized for low pressure. Like if you don't know that about the baffle geometry of an Oculus, you need to learn about that, because silencer designers have known that for decades. Now, it doesn't have a K baffle in it. It's not a K baffle. Is it? No. It's a curved cone stuff from Rugged. It's not curved or stepped cones, whatever. It's a derivative of the old SWR lineage without the coaxial portion. You know what that means. It's not an Omega baffle, but it's basically a stepped cone. Fine. Great performance on a rifle. Great performance on a rifle. Still good on a pistol. Really good on a pistol. Oculus is a great silencer. Sounds great on a pistol. Not nearly as good as a high pressure optimized traditional baffle, like a K baffle, for example. And hey, by the way, I know some of you are waiting for this. Don't worry. You're going to see AAC element data from PEW Science. Don't worry. Yeah, we have that. What, you think I haven't tested an element? Relax. So you see this. I'm saying, I'm being very objective with you. Oculus is a high performing silencer. Fine. So you see, and that Oculus, it's my silencer. That's my personal silencer. Okay. I love the Oculus. I own one. Okay. So you see this. You see this chart. Then you see the Jesse's Girl. The Jesse's Girl, again, using very traditional 22 baffle geometry. Nothing groundbreaking. They did some things that help with high pressure. It's not a K baffle, but they did do some things to help. You see a performance increase over the Oculus here at the muzzle with the Jesse's Girl. I mean, not a huge performance increase, but you do see one. It's enough. It's a lot. It's going to be noticeable to you. Okay. At the muzzle. That's fine. Now, you look at the ear with the Oculus and the Jesse's Girl in this host on the Beretta 21A. They're pretty neck and neck. They're pretty neck and neck. Why? There's a technical reason for that. Well, it's because the ejection port blast it's going to get to you on both the Oculus and the Jesse's Girl. Why? Back pressure. That's right. You're hitting that. The level of, what is it, like diminishing returns, where you're just not going to get quieter at the ear because of that. That's why like a lot of people are like, oh man, like all these silencers sound the same in here. Well, they can sound very similar in intensity and hearing damage risk potential on the Beretta 21A. Why? Well, they're only gonna be so quiet at the muzzle, and there's gonna be back pressure, so there's gonna be ejection port blast that's gonna be definitely contributing to hearing damage risk potential to the shooter. And that's why a lot of people think that these silencers sound so dang similar on semi-auto pistols when they're shooting subsonic 22 ammo. Okay? And you will note, if you look at the Oculus and you look at the Jesse's Girl, there are really not any back pressure reducing features in either silencer. And there's none that I can see, and I have the silencers, and you can yourself, you can take them apart and you can examine them if you want to. I think you'll see they're traditional designs. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're traditional designs. There's nothing groundbreaking in those silencers. So you see the short configuration of the Oculus in the table as well. Okay, let's not forget about that. And obviously, with Oculus baffle design, if you only have a few baffles, you're going to drop your muzzle suppression rating significantly. That's silencer 101. You make the silencer smaller, less baffles, you're going to trap less gas, it's going to be louder. Cool, got it, awesome. Now, what else happens when you do that with that specific silencer with the Oculus? Well, your back pressure is going to drop, isn't it? Well, of course, your back pressure is going to drop. You got less baffles in the silencer. Okay? I mean, your early time flow rate's not going to change, but your omega is going to change a lot, right? Right. So what does that do? Well, it helps your ejection port blast somewhat. But what else happened? Well, you remember, don't forget about that loud muzzle blast. So the muzzle blast is so loud, so that ends up hurting you again. So what happens? What happens with the suppression ratings with the short configuration of the Oculus? Well, you see a higher suppression rating at the shooter's ear than the muzzle, right? But both are lower than you get with a full-size 22 silencer. And that's expected, okay? There's no surprise here. There's no surprise here when you look at that data. Tiny 22 silencers with traditional baffle technology are not quiet on 22 pistols. They're quieter than unsuppressed, but they're not quiet in the pure sense, in the objective sense, right? The end. You know that. Done. So the final configuration shown in the table is the Cat SR. And when you see that in context, you see the dividends being paid by the surge bypass implementation in the silencer. You see the dividends in both gross muzzle suppression, in the gas momentum throttling, you know, out of the end of it, but there is the combined high early time flow rate that really benefits you at the shooter's ear. Here, what you're doing is you're seeing what's possible when you have both. And this is the thing that should be concerning to you. If you're concerned with how silencers are performing, you should be concerned with this. Because right here, you're beating the closest competitor at the muzzle by over half a category. Okay. Half a category higher than the Jesse's girl at the muzzle. That's non-trivial. That's fine. Okay, that's like, okay, you had a pretty big, you had a decent gap between the long configuration of the Oculus and the Jesse's girl. You know, move from Jesse's girl to the Cat SR, the gap's even bigger. Okay, cool. Non-trivial. Now, look at the shooter's ear. You're over a category higher in suppression at the shooter's ear. You're touching the 80 zone at the shooter's ear, and you're over a category higher in suppression, guys. You're over a category higher in suppression. You're touching the 80 zone on the Beretta 21A with CCI standard velocity. It's a pretty big deal. The only way it's possible to do that is to manage the ejection port blast, and the only way it's possible to do that is to have the early time flow rate. And yeah, there's more than one way to skin that cat for sure. Like that's a dumb analogy with the name of the company's cat, but you know what I mean. Like there's more than one way to solve that problem to have that high early time flow rate. There's more than a few ways to do that, but to also do it with a superior muzzle suppression, that can be a tough nut to crack. Again, there's multiple ways to do that too, but it can be a tough nut to crack. It looks like the Cat SR is doing that. That's great. And it's doing it without FRP. So yeah, so when it comes to signature, and to be clear, folks, just so you know, these white papers are called sound signature reviews. When it comes to sound signature, the Cat SR is doing something we've not yet seen. I'm not telling you that there's nothing in the world that does this too. I'm just telling you, even from our internal test data, we have not seen something do this before. So just know we are just as surprised as you. We're just as surprised as you when we first tested it, when we first shot it, and then when we tested it more and more, we are just as surprised. Okay, so that's all I have right now on the Cat SR. Quiet on multiple hosts. Pick a bolt gun or a semi-auto, whatever you want. It's super light. You clean it with an acid, fine. I personally, what have I been doing in my off time, which I don't have a lot of? I have been on Gunbroker looking at vintage 22 hosts that I've always wanted to suppress just to put this on there, just to put this on different guns. Like I'm literally going to spend probably thousands of dollars and getting weird hosts and then having their barrels threaded just so I can see what happens. Like that's the point I'm at in my silencer lunacy. whenever I find silencers that impress me like this, with the features like this that I know I can put on multiple hosts, I look for hosts. That's my disease. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you, like, that's what I'm doing. Like, I was like on Gunbroker today looking at some weird Italian pistol. I was like, should buy that. I didn't, but like I've been looking at them. So anyway, I don't know. I go back to Silencer Guy 101. I like to find old cool hosts to put silencers on. It's just like, I think when I suppressed my Sig P210, so stupid. People are like, why are you doing that? It's like, because it's cool. It's like 9mm pistol. It's like my favorite type of silencer host. That's like really cool. Anyway, I have that. So I don't know. It's a sickness, guys. It's fine. Now, let me know if you have any questions about the data or analysis. I have actually answered most of your emails already, which I am proud to say, especially with how busy we've been. I think I've answered most of them. So that actually does bring us to the last topic of today. Really quick, let's move into topic 3 at a time of 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 33 seconds. Okay, so we are going long. That is quite a long time. So topic 3, just some quick administrative items for you. Thank you for your patience. Guys, I really do appreciate that. Things are cooking. It is in large part due to your support. Most of your emails have been answered. There are some welcome emails I need to send out in the next few days. If you have joined PEW Science recently and I have not emailed you, it's because that is next on my list and I simply haven't gotten there yet. I know you're there. I have not forgotten you. I'm just not there yet. If you're a testing client, the proposals are flowing. You're going to get those soon. So don't worry about that. Just thank you for your patience on that. All client deliverables have been delivered that I know of right now. Please, if you reach out, if something's not in your inbox or something, like, we're here. So don't like think you can't email me. I'm right here. So I do want to thank you for generous donations recently. It was really, really great. Really helps the effort. It's actually very heartwarming to correspond with a lot of you, and your feedback is really appreciated. I do appreciate that. The technical questions in particular we've been getting from members lately are really great. We've been really getting some really great technical questions we've been enjoying helping you with. Please don't be afraid to send those in, especially pro members. You literally get priority. Like if you're a pro member at pewscience.com, like, one of the perks of the membership is you get like priority engineering response from me. Like, I will answer your technical questions. Like, I'm here for that. So please take advantage. It's literally there. Okay. It's like, just email me. It's right there. I hope the answers help. I try to help you. Now, I do think we're due for a listener question episode. I think we'll do that next time. I think it'd be good for that. Okay. So we're due. We had so much technical stuff to talk about today. We didn't have time. Okay. Not this week. And again, please stay tuned for some more data, but again, not this week. We need an off week. There's too much going on. Okay. But shortly you will have more data. So thank you for listening. Please stay safe out there, and I will talk with you folks again soon. Okay, bye.